unity, accept the spectrum of approaches. We do not have to become the same people, and conservatives in particular require well-defined differences rather than a merger. I brought this paper today because the U.S. and China commit to a global climate pact.
Yeah.
We have all kinds of differences with China.
Yeah.
It goes in here, all the things that we are fighting about, but if we can agree on this one thing, and we can even use that frame, we don't have to agree on everything, but if we can agree that we have to take care of God's creation, however you want to put it.
It's the only habitable planet in the solar system.
Yeah. Be honest about the danger.
Church.
Be honest about the danger in the way we tell the climate change story, but remember this will only motivate people if they hear it from trusted communicators and can see opportunities for action and change. Encourage positive visions, but remember these may carry social cues that may repel others. The bright side technocratic future vision, for example, is elitist and materialistic and alienates those who are already disenfranchised, as we talked about. Activate cooperative values rather than competitive values. Stress what we have in common. A better life for our children. Health, security, thriving. When people say that climate change requires a value change, they invariably mean other people need to change to their values. We all hold the right values and care about the welfare of others. Relate solutions to climate change to the sources of happiness, the connections we feel with our friends, neighbors, and colleagues. Now this is something that I have been guilty of, and the CCL has been guilty of. Attempts to motivate people through appeals to personal self-interest are unlikely to be successful. Appeal rather to security, caring for your family, and social identity. Because we say, oh yeah, it's hard to be a dividend and get money back. And people are interested in that. But there are better ways, he is saying, to do that than to appeal to the self-interest. Because self-interest actually encourages them to return to that set of values of self-interest rather than the set of values where we're caring for other people. Which is the, as Gladys spent 2 years explaining to us, refers to the nurturant system of, what do you call it, rather than the authoritarian, right? Emphasize that action on climate change makes us proud to be who we are. Here we get into identity. Identify with us. And reinforce this with the social cues and social proof that people like ourselves are seen as concerned and taking action. People are best motivated when an action reinforces their identity and sense of belonging to their social group. I don't know if I put this in here, but he spent a long time talking to some religious leaders of very right-wing churches that had become very environmentally aware, actually. And he said, why is religion so successful? What are you doing? He said, well, for one thing, when people come and they ask for information, we connect them with people rather than sending them to a website. And they had other things. They had a process of forgiveness, something that Nancy said. When you're dealing with guilt and grief, there have to be mechanisms to deal with this guilt and this grief. People to listen to this, and there has to be a process of forgiveness, which the church offers. Or if I have to change my mind, if I have to change my attitude about my values, if I have to feel bad about the way I have been living that life, there has to be a process to forgive oneself and to keep moving on. So we can take on that particular, I wouldn't call it a strategy, I would like to think of it as more authentic and sincere than that. But just approach our connecting with other people in a more human way rather than just data and policy. Enable communications with built-in interaction. I think we kind of don't need to go there. Keep an open mind, we know that. I just want to get to the end. For conservatives, respect environmentalists. Be prepared to learn from religions. This is what I was talking about. In the thousands of years of experience they have in creating methods to sustain socially held beliefs, make personal contact. Belief in climate change can be understood as a personal revelation. You go to them with a credible messenger and you affirm their truth. I had this story I had a mentor in Santa Fe who taught us dialogue. He was older than us, a lawyer, a brilliant man, and he kind of accepted this little ragtag group of hippies around him. He loved us and we loved him, and he was teaching us, and he was saying, okay, what if someone tells you that they have come to God and they really have found so much joy in their personal belief in Jesus? What do you say? Well, every single one of us tried to tell this woman about Buddha. And he said, no. And we said, well, what do you say? And he said, you tell her, hallelujah, I'm so happy for you.
Yeah.
Bob Inglis, you go to them with a credible messenger and you affirm their truth. And you help them to see that this fits within their story. And you honor them by being there with them. Then you can get conversions. I'd like to, I'm going to mention Bob Inglis again in a minute. Incorporate mechanisms for personal forgiveness. Without forgiveness, our feelings about climate change will become stuck in a climate of hatred, bitter recrimination, and relentlessness, easily feeling harshly judged and not willing to accept the reality of the loss. If we feel judged and blamed and guilty, that's not going to help us change our attitudes. Present climate change as a journey of conviction. Let's see, invoke the I think we can get through this. And emphasize the qualities that create trust. Trust is more important than information. Tell personal stories. Be emotionally honest. Recognize the role of your own emissions. This is a thorny problem. It'll take a little bit of time, but I want to get into it. We can reduce our own emissions, and changing personal behaviors can be the key to changing attitudes, developing identification as an environmentalist. On the other hand, when the government's focused on personal responsibility, they were being extremely political and framing climate change within a wider neoliberal ideology that promotes private property rights and free markets. We're all now moral entrepreneurs with personal responsibility, but with no access to the actual decisions. But, as I was saying earlier, the governments were really saying climate change is our fault. Many conservatives refuse to buy a low-energy light bulb once the packaging carried a sticker reading "Protect the Environment."
They'll show.
Yeah. Let's see. Enable fresh, real voices. CCL is really trying to do this, and we're finding them. Find new communicators. Drop the echo stuff. Drop the polar bears. Drop the whole language of environmentalism and find the language of the person that you're talking to. Close the partisan gap. I wanted to get to this. When you get home, you can just Google it, TED Talk by Bob Inglis. It is the most brilliant talk for conservatives that I have ever seen. He does everything right. Bob, does everyone know who Bob Inglis is?
I've seen it.
You've seen
Actually.
it? It is.
Watched half the video before I came.
Did you?
So did we.
Did you? Yeah. It's. I'm gonna keep that as a resource. He does it so beautifully. Be honest. Now, this is what Nancy was saying. I won't get into this. Recognize people's feelings of grief and anxiety. Mourn what is lost. Value what remains. Mourn the end of the fossil fuel age. I'm going to stop here and get into that. We have just time to watch George Marshall himself. Let's see.
Shelley, while you're looking for that, I'd like to say something that I've been hoping for all the different omni-progressive groups about climate change. We're also organizing around transition, Northwest Arkansas transition towns. So for me, the book forum that we're in right this moment is like educational. CCL is like innovation, and the transition is like adaptation.
Right.
So I think if we need to be able to talk to each other about what each group is doing so that we can work together better. Thank you.
Here's George Marshall himself. I find him a delightful personality.
Climate change is happening. find yourself in a situation with work or people you know,
Shelley, can you turn it down?
and they're saying, climate change isn't happening. I don't believe it's an actual cycle.
Can you turn it up
Maybe
just
it's
because
a concept that I don't see much back global warming that you people are talking about. And you're wondering, what do I do with this? Do I fight it out with them? Because fighting it out is just going to be an argument, isn't it? You just laugh it off, you just let it go. So what I wanted to say is actually that conversation is really important. The vast majority of people form their views from their social interactions that people around them, which is why those conversations are so important. But not anyone around them. They do it with their social peers. They're in constant negotiation with what social scientists would call the social norm, trying to weigh up their own views against the views of people around them. And the people that they listen to are the people who seem like them, share things with them, and seem to have something in common. So your starting point for talking to people like this should be trying to establish what exactly is that common ground. Actually, you have more in common with people than you might think. We all have a lot more in common with each other than we have in difference. This is the starting point. And of course, if you're talking with somebody who you already know, well, you know what you have in common with them. Maybe you work in the same place, maybe you're members of the same family. It might be you have other things too. Maybe you share a faith. Maybe you share an interest, a passion. Maybe you share politics. There might be many things you share. These are very, very important because even though these are not directly about climate change, these are the things that people are looking for to establish whether or not they should listen to you, whether or not you are their peer, whether you are their equal, or somebody whose views need to be taken into consideration when they form their own views. Because you're seeking that common ground, it's really important that you don't go into this as an argument, that you think you are going to win or lose. Because when you have an argument with somebody, what you're emphasizing is the difference between you, not what you have in common. And many people want an argument on climate change. If you give them what they want, they'll move their views forward anyway. If you think about your own experience, and you think about the times when you have been challenged, and you, in some way, has changed your views. Was that an argument that was won or not? Did you ever, at the end of a conversation with someone say, you know what, you were right all along. Silly me, I was wrong, I'm wrong, you were right. In fact, actually, and I know this when I look at when I've been challenged, when I've changed my views, I'll bet you that when there was something going on inside your head that was really shifting, well actually you were very defensive. You probably put up quite a strong resistance to what was going on. So we all carry inside us, in our own experience of when we've met people who's changed, had influence on us, a kind of like a roadmap for how it's best achieved. One of those ways, as we say, is to establish common ground. There's another critical thing, which I bet happened whenever somebody has had a big influence on you. I bet you that they treated you with respect. Okay, I know it's hard to feel much respect sometimes for people who are arguing into something that you think not only is hugely important, but hugely important for them too, hugely important for the whole world. That's why often conversations turn into a row. I bet that's also a good reason why you might want to avoid the conversation altogether in the first place. And sometimes people who don't accept climate change can be highly argumentative and sometimes be quite aggressive with their views. It's still important you show that respect though, for several reasons. First of all, of course, that if you don't show respect to them, you have no real grounds for asking them back. You just get to a sort of head-to-head argument, which isn't going to get you anywhere. Maybe what they want, but it's not going to help change their views. But it's also worthwhile showing respect because if you think about it, the fact that they are forming their own views and that they are expressing their own views is something which in other situations might be actually quite worthy of respect. You know, the easy option on climate change is to say, well, climate change, that's a huge problem, and then not even think about it or do anything about it. Or at least they're engaging with it and they're thinking about it, even if the conclusions they're coming to might be the wrong ones. So at least respect that quality that they are making up their own minds. We can actually even start with the language. climate change denial, it's a good rallying cry. I got you onto this video, but it's not very useful language in terms of respecting people. Skeptic is a bit of a problem too. Skeptic is a word that suggests that what a skeptic does is they weigh up all the evidence very carefully, but then they're not sure about it. But actually, that isn't what skeptics do. Because if they did do that, they'd actually accept that climate change is happening. So let's use a nice word. Let's call them, for now, let's call them dissenters. Dissenters are people who, sometimes they're right and sometimes they're wrong, but there's definitely quality in valuing the fact that they dissent. So, going back to the experience we all hold, remember, we all have within us a kind of roadmap for what works and what doesn't work for communicating. Think about what has really changed your views in the community. Oh, I bet they were respectful. I bet they found common ground. But when it came down to the differences, the conversation wasn't one about finding a consensus or an agreement, was it? It was one in which they said, yes, I know who you are, I respect you, I can see that you're a worthwhile person, but we do disagree about this. And this is a very important thing for climate change. You can go into a discussion which you are seen to clearly and honestly own and hold your views. There's a real problem with the way that people talk about climate change, which is why it's actually so important that you hold and own your views. Which is that when we talk about climate change, we almost always do it as an it, as an external thing. And that's why so many conversations with people who don't accept climate change turn into an argument about the it. One set of data against another set of data. Is it natural cycles? Is it sunspots? We're not talking about what we actually accept on our views. Like I said, social norms affect people's beliefs because people look around for what other people think. Not it, not the data, but what people think. So one of the key ways to talk about climate change is to keep away from an argument about the information or the content, but to say, this is what I think, this is what I think, and this is why I think it. You know what, Uncle Bob? You're quite entitled to your views, you've obviously read a lot, but this is what I think, and this is why I think it. Not you're wrong about it, but I have my views. Because you know what? Even if you disagree about it, you can't disagree about what you happen to think, because let's face it, that is true, you know it. And don't seek to criticise or undermine the sources of their information either, because that is another version of arguing about the it, saying, oh, the only people who tell you that are professional climate change deniers paid off by the oil industry, or they're like political extremists, or well, that may be true of some of them. Maybe true, but actually some of them really genuinely believe what they say. They may very well be people who are not taking money from the oil industry. And anyway, you know what? You're not going to gain anything from that argument because you are seeking to undermine and demean the people that they depend on for their information. You know what? They could say some of the things about the people you depend on for your information. This is again getting into head-to-head about the it. Say, this is what I believe, and this is why. We also know from the social research that actually people do not form their views in any immediate moment, but they form it over time. As I said, it's a steady process of negotiation. So it is important when you tell people the views that you hold, but you explain the process by which you came to them. In other words, that you talk to them about your personal journey. Yeah, talking about your journey, it sounds like some kind of marketing cliche. It's not necessarily as blatant or as rough as that. It's explaining to people that you, yourself, have been on a direction from a situation where, like them, simply you're establishing a common ground, you did not accept the data problem, to a situation where now you do. Let's face it, there was a time when you didn't believe that climate change was happening. There is for everyone. There was, maybe, a time when you lived as if there was no tomorrow, you burnt up fossil fuel all the time, you didn't care about energy use. Now, you do care about those things, and you do care about climate change. And the more you can do to model that personal journey, the more you show them that change can come over time. And the more you can suggest to them that it is not some kind of mad cult, as they might think it is, but actually that it's something that you come to and you develop with a kind of maturity. You start to have a thought, you see something, you listen to something. How did you come on that journey? What was it which really switched you on? Was it something you read? Was it noticing how weird the weather had got? Was it some personal experience? Was it somebody you met, share those experiences and model the way you came to hold your views? Now we know from the social research that it is not just from the social norm, from the people around us we collect our views. We also look for views which fit well with our existing values and life experience. In other words, we look for views which fit with our existing worldview. The worldview is a technical name that can be given to the way that people frame the world around them. There's so much information out there, there's so many things to evaluate, but people actually tend to have a little box, literally, a frame through which they choose to make sense of the world around them. This is formed for a whole lot of things, particularly people's life experience, their parents, where they grew up and so on. Sometimes faith can play a major role. Sometimes people's life experience, of course, if someone's had a hard and rough life, they're likely to see the world as something which is quite challenging, something to fight, maybe more so than someone's had a very privileged life. Worldview, we know, is one of the most important factors in what makes people a climate change dissenter. And it's for that reason that many of the climate change dissenters are from the same worldview. Many of them are men, considerably more than women. Many more of them have conservative politics, and many of them are people who are in middle age or a little older. It's a generalisation, of course, you get widespread, but there's a particular, it's a demographic, a particular group of people, and I'm sure you've experienced that in terms of people you might have met. There's a reason why climate change is so challenging to this particular group of people. I think probably the main one is for many older people, they believe that they have a social contract. They believe that they're in a world where you work hard, you save money, you build up your life, you build up your career, and as a result of that, you get certain benefits which you have an entitlement to. But climate change feels like all of the rules have shifted, the ground has shifted. So much of the language of climate change appears to be about taking things away from people. How they're going to have less, how they're going to have a smaller car, or a smaller house, or not fly for their holidays, and so on. And many people see this actually pulling the rug from under their feet, especially just at the time that they feel that they finally actually managed to stand up properly. You need to recognise that when you talk to people. You need to recognise that this is challenging. You also need to recognise, actually, that some of this is just the packaging of climate change. The people who have really taken climate change to heart are people who are social progressives, environmentalists, campaigners. And the whole language and the style that they've given to it has been something which fits their worldview. There's no reason, actually, why climate change cannot be a matter of deep concern to people who are conservative, people who are older, people who are very traditional, people who have very strong religious faith, and so on. There's no reason at all. It is simply that they have not had the opportunity to take it wholly. So when you talk about climate change, try and drop all of the eco-babble, the stuff which gives it the unnecessary packaging, which doesn't help. And try and find the ways of talking about it which relates to them, their concerns, and their life experience. Above all, when you do it, be thinking about what it is that changing their views might give them that would be of benefit to them. Why on earth might they want to change their views? Apart from that, you happen to think you're right. They've got to have some reason for wanting to do it. That's why the next thing is rewards. Rewards are really important. After all, rewards are the reason why anybody wants to do anything. Climate change is a huge issue. Overwhelming, it can frighten, it can terrify. If people sense in their engagement with you that it's having those effects on you, they may very reasonably decide they don't want to change their views and accept climate change. Many people already keep themselves in a state of quite deliberate under-information about climate change for this reason. On the internet, scarcely a minute of looking around, giving you as much information as you would you actually ever need to make a decision on it, and people deliberately keep it at arm's length. So when it comes to rewards, it is partly in your own actions and your own behaviour showing that it is adding something to your life and the meaning of your life. But it's also recognising the values of the people you're speaking to. Often, for people who do not believe in climate change, they are nonetheless have very strong values in other areas. These are often people who are very strongly invested in their community, in their family, in a social life. They can often be quite traditional in the sense that they have a very strong sense of identity in place. And these are all the kinds of values to speak to in terms of giving rewards. And we can also decouple the big issue, which is climate change, from the solutions. Because you don't have to accept the whole package of climate change in order to see the reasons for solutions. And one of the things we know psychologically is if people start on a set of actions, for example, they start insulating their homes, they start travelling differently, they start maybe consuming differently, that those actions alone, even if they don't yet fully accept climate change, can bring behind them a change in attitudes. It makes it so much more possible, if you're changing the way you live, to accept that there might be a wider global reason for that change. Alright, so putting it together, well, first thing, this isn't a shopping list, I'm not going to work through these things one by one. This is just kind of game plan for how you might engage with, I don't know, just alcohol, okay? And involved with family occasions, you always try to get into a little bit of a banter with you about climate change. He kind of wants to take the piss, but actually there's other stuff going on behind it. So how might we deal with it? Well, we might say, common ground, we've got a little common bond, you've got a family and so on. And I really respect actually the way you can make up your own mind about things. Respect, the way you sorted out that problem that I had with, with Auntie Joan, I thought you really stood up for me, and I really respect that about you. But this climate change stuff, we don't agree. I don't agree with you about this because I personally really do think that we have a problem. Okay, hold your own views. Don't get into the arguments about the pros and cons or natural cycles and so on.